Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. To grasp the full impact of RC, it is necessary to zero in on the two most frequently misunderstood concepts: the nature of viability checks and the role of social interaction. Viability checks are how a learner determines if their construction holds up. These checks are not limited to external success. They also involve internal coherence. Glasersfeld identifies several key types of viability checks, moving far beyond the simple pass-fail of traditional testing. Empirical viability, the is domain. This is the functional test. Does the construction allow the student to predict, control, or explain phenomena in their physical world? If a student constructs a model of a lever and it allows them to successfully lift an object, the model is empirically viable. If they try to apply the model and the lever breaks or the object doesn't budge, the model has proven unviable. 2. Argumentative viability. This is where internal logic and reasoning come into play. A construction must be internally consistent. If a student's geometric theorem leads to a contradiction within their existing system of geometry, the construction is not viable, regardless of whether it produces the correct number on a specific test case. 3. Social viability. The ought domain. This is the check against the consensual domain. If a student explains their method to a peer or the teacher, and the peer or teacher responds with confusion or disapproval, a verbal perturbation, the student realizes that their linguistic or conceptual construction is not viable for shared communication. This forces the student to refine their construction to get their point across effectively. The ultimate goal of RC education is to equip the learner with the ability to self-assess viability, to become their own arbiter of knowledge. The teacher's job, therefore, is to design environments rich with these types of checks, transforming the classroom into a laboratory for testing conceptual structures. A common, pervasive misconception about RC is that it leads to extreme solipsism. The idea that because knowledge is individually constructed, every person lives in their own private reality, making communication impossible. This is missing the point entirely. Glasersfeld acknowledges the profound role of the social environment. While knowledge is constructed in the individual mind, it is constructed with and against the constraints provided by others. Social interaction, specifically social negotiation and mediation, is absolutely essential. Intersubjectivity. When two people successfully communicate, it doesn't mean their conceptual structures are identical. It means their constructions are compatible, viable in the context of their communication. They have established a consensual domain. For instance, two people talking about democracy may have slightly different internal definitions, but if those definitions overlap enough to allow their conversation to flow smoothly, their concepts are intersubjectively viable. The power of perturbation. Other people are often the most potent source of perturbation. When a classmate disagrees with a student's solution and offers a compelling counterargument, this is a social constraint that forces the student to recognize the limitations of their original model. The push and pull of collaborative learning, what some might call hashing things out, is vital for constructing robust, socially vetted knowledge. In short, RC does not discount the social aspect of learning. It simply states that the social interaction itself, including the language used, is interpreted and processed by the individual to construct meaning. It shows us how social interaction can be harnessed as a powerful mechanism for driving cognitive accommodation. The power of radical constructivism is matched by the difficulty of its acceptance. Because it flies in the face of centuries of philosophical tradition, it often encounters fierce resistance and widespread misinterpretation. Addressing these issues is vital for putting RC into practice. The most frequent criticism leveled at RC is the charge of relativism. Critics argue that if knowledge is merely a subjective construct, then all knowledge is equally valid, leading to an anything-goes scenario where scientific laws are no more legitimate than superstition. Glasersfeld had a clear, consistent rebuttal. RC is not metaphysical relativism. It is epistemological skepticism. 1. Skepticism, not denial. RC does not deny the existence of objective reality. It simply states that we as human knowers have no way of accessing it or confirming if our internal models correspond to it. It's a statement about the limits of human knowing, not about the nature of being. 2. The power of constraints. The anything goes argument falls apart because the experiential world provides powerful, non-negotiable constraints. If a student constructs the idea that they can fly off a roof, the physical world will quickly provide a catastrophic perturbation, gravity, that proves this concept is unviable. Similarly, the vast, shared history of human experience means that only a tiny fraction of all possible conceptual structures has proven viable for navigating and predicting the world. The Newtonian physics model is viable because it works for a colossal number of human purposes, not because it is absolutely true. While RC provides an elegant philosophical framework, implementing it in real-world educational systems presents all kinds of challenges. Time and pacing. Constructivist learning, driven by inquiry and accommodation, is inherently slower than transmission. Covering the vast amount of required content in a standardized curriculum becomes a serious challenge. Teachers feel pressure to stick to the syllabus, often forcing them to fall back on lecturing rather than facilitating discovery. Assessment. The deep, qualitative assessment required to infer a student's conceptual structure is incredibly time-consuming and difficult to scale, especially in large classes. The current reliance on easily graded, objective testing creates a system that is often at odds with constructivist goals. Teacher training. RC requires a massive shift in the teacher's mindset, from being the source of truth to being the manager of cognitive environments. Many educators, having been trained in the traditional model, find it difficult to switch gears and relinquish the authority of the answer giver. It takes a lot of work to learn how to guide students without telling them the answer. Parent and public expectation. Parents and the wider community are often used to and expect traditional methods. A parent may raise an eyebrow at a classroom where the teacher doesn't seem to be lecturing, worried that their child isn't learning the facts. Overcoming these ingrained cultural expectations requires clear, consistent communication about the goals and processes of RC. Ernst von Glasersfeld's radical constructivism remains one of the most intellectually rigorous and educationally transformative theories of the last century. Its core message is that human knowledge is not a passive mirror of objective reality, but an active, purposeful instrument built by the individual to navigate the world of their experience. The replacement of the goal of truth with the pragmatic criterion of viability fundamentally redefines what it means to know. In the classroom, this theory throws down the gauntlet, demanding a wholesale reevaluation of practice. It challenges the efficacy of the transmission model, reframes misconceptions as functionally viable stepping stones, and necessitates a profound change in the roles of both teacher and student. The teacher becomes an empathetic guide, an orchestrator of disequilibrium, and a facilitator of collaborative meaning-making, while the student steps up to the plate as the principal architect of their own understanding. Though its implementation faces no shortage of hurdles in a system dominated by standardization and time constraints, the legacy of radical constructivism is clear. It gets to the heart of what genuine learning is. It champions the notion that lasting knowledge must be self-constructed and functionally adaptive. For educators looking to move beyond rote memorization and foster students who can truly think critically and creatively, students whose knowledge structures are robust enough to hold their own against the challenges of a complex, changing world, Glasersfeld's radical view remains an indispensable foundation.